Welcome to NCL Thursday Night Live for March 8th, 2018. I'm Dr. Dan Manson, NCL Commissioner, and it's my pleasure to have back Franz Payer from Cyber Skyline. Franz, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be back.
Well, let's talk about the upcoming spring season. I think it's going to be better than ever. It's a full season. We now have 2 complete seasons in spring and fall. And we've made a few updates this year. For one of the updates we made is that not only can you register for the regular season now, but you can register for postseason. Why did we make that change? What are some of the advantages of being able to sign up for both?
Well, what we noticed from previous seasons is that before postseason registration was only open after the regular season. So there's a pretty small window of time for people to actually go and make teams and register. So now having postseason open concurrently with regular season, you have plenty of time to figure out who you want on your team, get coordinated and get everything together and get your payment in to get started with postseason. And there's a lot of if you're excited about the regular season, you like the regular season, you get even more of that in the postseason. You get this more challenges, just as much content as you got during the regular season. And now you get to compete with your friends as well.
Sounds good. And I look at the registration for spring season now, and it has more information. It has a much longer time for the gym to be open. You can jump in and stay there the whole season. We do have more resources for those who want to play now, don't we?
Yeah, the gym is open, I think, 5 days after registration closes, and then it's open even past the postseason. So you don't have to be constrained about when NCL regular and postseason are. You have 2-3 months where you can go whenever you want and have some challenges that you can look at and do.
Great. And another change we're making is we're promoting NCL to the high schools. We started having high schools play this fall. Have we had high schools play in the past? Have you noticed last year that we had high schools playing?
We had a couple of select high schools that we were kind of piloting, but I think that opening it up to the entire high school population really gives a lot more opportunities for these students to get jumpstart their learning in cybersecurity and move ahead.
So high schools are in competitions now. There have been CTFs for high schools. Pico CTF is for middle and high school. HSCTF is a competition that's run by a high school. So it's not that CTFs are new to high schools. Cyber Patriot obviously is exploding in terms of the number of teams and number of schools that play. Do you think that high school students are ready for NCL?
Yeah, I think NCL is a pretty good introductory into cybersecurity with a relatively low commitment. I mean, with Cyber Patriot, it's a pretty big endeavor if you want to get into it. You have to have a coach and that has to get you through the entire system, and then the payment is also much higher than what it is for NCL. After you've done some of these free and open CTFs and you're willing to take that next step to be more competitive, NCL provides you with the gymnasium, which gives you a lot of that experience before you get started. And it also provides this team experience. I mean, there aren't very many, CTFs that allow you to build a team and work together for the in the postseason for NCL. So I think that, if you're really ready to take the next step as a high schooler, NCL is a great way to be more connected and get energized in cybersecurity.
We're getting some comments on Facebook. Mark Kriskowski, who's one of our star coaches, he's been on the show, says he will have a contingent of high school students registering and they will love it. And one of the things I'm hoping to see is the synergy between a high school and a college. I mean, for me, it's like a sport that if you really get the passion of playing competitions, you not only want to play at your level, but you want to start playing up. So I think for high school kids, having a chance to play against college kids and having a chance to partner with a college is a tremendous experience.
Yeah, and just because they're in high school doesn't mean they're not going to win. We've seen high schoolers beat out college students all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of passion in the high school space for playing in these competitions. In terms of the mentoring piece, do you think that community colleges, for example, mentoring high schools on how to play NCL is a good idea?
I think it'd be great. I mean, from on both ends, definitely having other people to help guide you is a an immense tool to move you forward in your career. But also for if you have community colleges that are helping these high schoolers, teaching is the best way to learn yourself. So I think that on both ends, it's definitely a great way to help build your knowledge.
And we have a message from William Thomas. It is worth registering. I played last spring. I'd learned so much thanks to Southern New Hampshire University. We had SNHU on the show, and they were the all-women team that played last fall. They played remotely. So it's not a game where everyone has to be in the same room, right? You can have people play in different locations.
Yeah, there's no real restriction. You can play at school, you can play at home. As long as you have an internet connection, you can play. And especially for postseason and teams, you guys can play all at the same time. You can play at different times, however you want to do it.
Let's talk a little bit about your own competition background. What age were you when you played in your first competition? What was the competition, and what was the experience like?
I think the very first thing I did was the Maryland Cyber Challenge. I don't remember exactly how old I was at the time. I think I was a junior in high school. I was really excited. But that was a team competition, so I had to get a group of friends, and I found it pretty difficult to motivate them as well. But once we got into it, it became pretty engaging. There's definitely a lot more, like the space has changed a lot since when I first did competitions. And I think that some problems back then have kind of gotten a little bit better now, especially with NCL there. But one of the big things is that as a beginner, when you're starting out in high school, for instance, if you're doing one of these big competitions, like Cyber Patriot or the Maryland Cyber Challenge or CCDC, if you're in college, it's kind of intimidating to get into them. And then, especially with the preliminary round, if you get eliminated right away, it's really disheartening. So I think, if I was in high school now, NCL is definitely a great way, to get into it. If you don't do well during the preseason, it's okay. You still have all the same challenges that everyone else gets as well. And there are a lot of resources to help you out.
I think that's one of the strong points of National Cyber League. And it's one of the reasons that we started this competition is that in CCDC, you can play and then lose, and then you're done for the whole season. You may not even make the qualifier. You may just play an invitational. In Cyber Patriot, there's only a few teams that ever get to the finals, in the semifinals. But in NCL, everyone who plays to the end. Whether you end up in first place or last place, everyone gets the same competition experience, the same scouting report, the same feedback, the same learning.
Right.
What made you want to play in your first competition?
Strangely enough, I just saw a flyer, and then I was just interested in security to begin with, and then I decided, well, this is a way for me to, have a goal and try to work towards something. And I think that was pretty important to getting me started.
Now, you went to the U.S. Cyber Challenge. We hosted Cyber Challenge at Cal Poly in 2010, 11, and 12. What year did you go to Cyber Challenge?
Oh, that's a good question.
Making you think.
I don't know. I'd probably I'd say maybe 12. I don't know. I'm kind of just guessing blindly.
So one of the things I liked about Cyber Challenge, it was like American Idol for cyber talent, and we had such a range. We had 18 to 49 as our range one year. We had 18 to 60 as our range for another year. So William is doing some great posting on Facebook. Thank you, William, for the messages here. I am 48, and if I can do it, anyone can. Enjoy. I did it at home online. I am registered, and this will be on my resume. Want to be a security analyst. I graduate in December from Southern New Hampshire University with my master's. So when we were doing the Cyber Challenge, we were able to let anyone who demonstrated talent through that CyberQuest qualifier to make the camp. And then what you got the camp, you got the fire hose. You got the 4 days of SANS training with the fire hose and the CTF at the end. What was it like playing that competition at the end of the week after the 4 days of the SANS training?
It was kind of exciting. Definitely, I think having a lot of that like hands-on experience definitely helped me prepare. And I think competitions are probably the best way of demonstrating knowledge, other than actually going and doing the things. It's one thing to learn it in a class, but to be able to apply it into something real really makes all the difference.
We have a message here from Thomas James, freshman at GCU. What can I expect to learn with not knowing a lot of experience in a NetSec competition? Looking forward on training in the gym for sure. Um, we have people that have zero experience. Caitlin's been great at talking about her background. She took her first computer class at the same time she started in NCL. So is this something where it's not you have to take a certain amount of schoolwork before you play, or is there synergy between playing in this and then alongside of that doing other activities?
Yeah, I'd say as long as you have some basic computer science knowledge, you have enough to start. The way we kind of build it is we have these kind of stepping stones that we build these challenges into. So we have easy, medium, and hard challenges, and the easy challenges really get to dip your toe in the water here. You'll learn a lot of things about definitely Googling for things that you don't know. When you're starting off, that's probably the most valuable skill that you can learn, is identifying that there's something new here and you don't know how to do it. And we kind of help you build those skills to figure out, okay, I don't know something. What resources do I need to go and learn these? So a lot of our open source intelligence challenges, for instance, we might have like a barcode that you have to figure out, well, how do I read a barcode? I got to find a barcode scanning tool, for instance, or we'll give you, an image with metadata, and you got to figure out, well, how do I read metadata? How do I interpret this data as well? The same goes for log analysis. We'll give you a log file that you've never seen before in your life, but based on some of the easy questions that we might ask you, you can start figuring out what steps you need to take to move along. And we have all those different topics that you can see on the NCL website. And the gymnasium especially is going to have a solutions guide associated with every single challenge in the gymnasium. So if you don't know how to solve it, you can reference the solutions guide and it'll walk you through all the steps that you need to take as well.
The process of solving a challenge, this is something that may take anywhere from minutes to hours to days. You've played in CTFs where you've had to spend a long time solving a challenge. The hard challenges in NCL take a long time, but what do you learn by spending that much time on a challenge? Is this something that is relevant to the real world?
I'd say the hardest ones are probably the most relevant to the real world. I think, so like last season we had a challenge where we gave you a bunch of different log files that we built, and the task was to identify insider threat. So you had all these different metrics, times that people were in the office, how much data were they transferring, when they were transferring the data, and we basically had you figure out who was the insider threat that was, exfiltrating data from the company network. That's something that you have to, spend a lot of time trying to correlate all that data. But then when you finally get the answer, you've proven that you can do this really real world task. That's something that, if an incident happens at a company that you're working at and you need to go in and figure out what happened, that's a valuable skill that you've just developed.
So when you're spending that long a time on a challenge, it's a combination of skills you really need. You need to have perhaps some background knowledge, but you also need to be very good at doing the research and also good at using the tools. So William mentions practice with Wireshark and Kali Linux. For a difficult challenge, are those tools that are worth knowing?
Yeah, they're definitely. So I'd say like for a lot of the beginner tasks that we have, you either need no tools at all, or you need a basic tool that's probably going to be in Kali Linux. Wireshark's in Kali as well. So those are definitely like the fundamentals. If you want to be able to go through every single category and be able to solve at least some challenges, you're going to need Kali Linux. Or you're going to have to download all the tools by yourself.
For someone who has the experience in NCL and then wants to, talk about that experience, whether it's with a hiring manager or going through HR, What are some ways that you would recommend that that person explain their process of solving challenges and how that relates to the the job that they want to go after? What are the transferable skills solving a challenge and actually doing this in a SOC, for example?
Right. So if you're describing this to a recruiter, I would definitely emphasize your entire thought process, because that's kind of what they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Is, how do you think, and is this going to be useful in my organization? And I think a lot of the challenges that you have in NCL, the tougher ones that require a lot more complex thought, definitely the thought process demonstrates your ability to persevere and your ability to correlate multiple different things together. And part of maximizing your experience in NCL, I think, would include keeping notes about how you solve these challenges, so that when you need to go to a recruiter and you have that one challenge which you spent hours on, and you dedicated your life to that one challenge, and you finally get it and you're ready to talk to your recruiter, then you can use that as reference, and you can show them exactly what you did and be proud of what you did.
The word that Mark Kriskowski posted is perseverance. Perseverance to me is a quality that you get through competitions, perhaps more than just taking a traditional class.
Yeah, and definitely with like competitions like this, I mean, they give you, like with NCL, we give you the flexibility to look at something and then get frustrated with it, and then come back the next day and come and solve it after you've had some time to think about it. We're not just 1-2 hour examination. It's 2.5 days that you have. So if you get stuck on something, sleep it off or think on it a little bit later, have a break, and then come back, and you have the opportunity to put in all the effort and energy that you want into solving the challenge.
We have a question from Robert. When does the gym open? So let's make sure everyone knows that. Can you mention the dates for the gym and any recommendation on using the gym?
The gym opens on March 30th, which is 5 days after regular season registration closes. And my recommendations are try to solve the challenges before you look at the answer key. That's the answer key is pretty easy to access. When you go and do the challenge, on your screen on the bottom left is going to be kind of the PDF in a window with the answer key, and it's grayed out, and then you just need to click on it and it'll display, and you'll have the answer there. So try to spend as much time trying to solve it by yourself before you fall back to that.
The gym is open for a long time, right? The gym stays open throughout the season into the postseason. So are there times where it's worth going back into the gym?
I'd say definitely right before and right after you do the regular season. Do like as a refresher before the regular season, get that experience and be prepared. And then afterwards, you can look at the things that you missed in the regular season and see if there were any related challenges in the gymnasium that you can look at, and then you have the answer guide to help you figure out how to do those as well. So it helps you learn what you missed after you've done it. In addition, to kind of complement that, when you log in our announcements section on our website, we have a link to join our Slack. And after the competition ends, we have a Slack channel where people can go and discuss their procedures and their methods for solving these challenges. We don't let anyone really give out the answer, but we let people, discuss how did you go about solving this. And I think, if you're really trying to maximize your learning from NCL, that's something that you might want to look into doing.
So the process of solving a challenge really involves the skills that employers look for. It's not, I guessed and I got the answer, or, I was able to get the answer, as much as understanding the process in getting to that point where you understood the challenge and then figured out the answer.
Yeah, it's, that's the benefit of doing NCL over just taking an exam or something like that. It's not knowledge-based, it's skills-based. It's about, applying yourself and I gave that example of finding the insider threat. That's something that if you're talking to a company that you're interviewing with, and they they have to worry about any types of breaches like this, then I mean, that's definitely something that they're going to see as valuable.
We were talking before the show about analytics. Are there some things that you're looking at doing with Cyber Skyline to provide more analytics? I think the scouting report is one of the best things we have. But are there some further directions that you'd like to see Cyber Skyline go in the future in terms of analytics, or is there data that you've thought about going after, or some type of way of doing deeper dives?
Yeah, that's something that we've been focusing on. There's so many CTFs out there, and they all kind of just give you a score and a rank. But then you have to figure out what exactly does that mean and what's the value of that. And we've tried to add in a lot more analytics to really maximize your understanding of your performance. So over the past seasons, like 2 seasons, we've added in the ability to not just look at the global leaderboard across all the different topics, but now we get topic level leaderboards. So you can go in, you can see how well you're doing in crypto versus how well you're doing in web application exploitation. In addition, we've built these kind of timeline graphs, where we kind of segment the population. So we have a graph for the top 25%, the bottom 25%, the average player in NCL, and then you can compare yourselves to those as well. And we're going to be building an experimental section where we're going to throw in a bunch of different graphs, which we think will help players kind of see how they compare to the crowd. And there's going to be a bunch of these different things that we're looking for feedback, because we're trying to figure out which ones are the most valuable to people. And that will be available during the regular season. And you can try that out and see what graphs you like and let us know.
That sounds great. Carlos Dorsey has a question. Is the high school version the same as the normal gym? The answer is yes, correct. We don't have two different gyms. Everybody plays in the same one, right?
Yeah, everyone gets the same thing. That's the great thing about NCL is whether you're a beginner or you're an advanced player, you're going to get the exact same experience. So the gym is going to be the exact same. You're going to be able to learn the exact same skills as everyone else.
So looking back at how you got started, if NCL was around back then, what grade would you have started playing NCL?
I'd probably say freshman or sophomore. I don't think I really got into it that much until my sophomore year, but I think it's a great way to get started.
Now, would you have been intimidated by the thought, oh, I'm playing something that colleges play? Being a freshman or a sophomore in high school, would that have scared you, or would that have been a motivational factor?
It's definitely a challenge. I need a challenge. I mean, we've run competitions where we've had like a small percentage of high school teams compete, and then when I see one of those high school teams take one of the top 3 positions, the like excitement that comes out of it is way more than we would get from any other college team.
So we've talked about the value of the scouting report for someone who wants to get a job in cybersecurity, but what about the value of a high school student collecting these scouting reports in terms of applying to a college? Do you think that we'll have colleges in the future with cybersecurity programs that are going to be interested in recruiting students from high school who have this type of experience and can demonstrate it?
Well, I'd hope so. But I think definitely if you're applying to college and you're trying to look at a cybersecurity program, this is a great way to show that you're not just doing what's in your classroom. You're going out and you're seeking different opportunities. I think being able to demonstrate that kind of motivation is going to set you apart from a lot of other people who are applying. And definitely when you're in high school and you're just starting out, the scouting report gives you a really detailed breakdown of how you did in every single topic. And if you're trying to see, maybe you're interested in a specific discipline in cybersecurity, or you want to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, the scouting report is a great way to be able to visualize that and say, well, maybe I want to pursue this because I'm really good in web application security. So maybe I should, go down that way. Or maybe I have some weaknesses I want to kind of iron out to be a lot more, put together. I don't know.
I would expect there'll be more students in the future, say at the high school level, that are going to use this to see if this is something they're interested in, because it's hard to know what cybersecurity is like if you just read about it or just take a class, in programming or computer science in high school, but playing NCL really opens your eyes as to what a cybersecurity professional needs to know.
Right, and it's more than just a competition. We have players who, this is their first time starting, and then they join our Slack and they get to talk to everyone else who's just starting, and it's a community, and everyone gets to help each other out. I mean, you can do all these different competitions, but I think being able to communicate and interact with everyone else that does NCL can help motivate you even more, and can be another useful resource for you as you try to grow your career in cybersecurity.
So there's the technical side competitions, but you just mentioned being able to explain and being able to communicate. And so if you're in that Slack channel, it's not enough just to understand the technical aspect or say what I did with Kali Linux, but why did you do it with Kali Linux? And what is it about Wireshark that gives you an understanding? So I think the communication skills, if you play NCL, you start to appreciate them more as well.
Right. And definitely I would recommend checking out the Slack channel, especially after the end of the event. So everyone basically, there's so much excitement on the Slack channel after the regular season or the postseason. But I think that, if you were struggling or you had some trouble, and especially if you're a beginner and if you're looking for people to provide explanations on how to go and do things, there's plenty of people on there. We will also help provide some, we're not providing answers because we don't want to just give anyone the answer, but we will provide the methods and techniques that you need to go and solve these challenges to help you grow.
I expect I know the answer to this question, but I do want to ask it. So we have 8 categories of challenges. Is that correct?
I think so. Let me double check that.
And my question is, have you ever thought, well, what is the hardest category, or is there a category that's relatively simple, or does it really vary according to the individual? That's what I expect the answer to be, that one person may think that web application is really difficult, another person may be really into that, so it's not the most difficult one. Cryptography might be for that person, but are there types of challenges based on the category that you would ever rank order from most difficult to least difficult?
We have a general, open source intelligence is typically going to be the easiest one for everyone. But we've definitely seen a lot of people who were interested in reverse engineering, and then, they didn't think that the exploitation topic was very difficult, but maybe they were struggling on cryptography, and you might have the exact opposite with someone else. So there are some beginner level challenges, and I definitely think open source intelligence is one of those. And there's some more advanced topics, across the board, such as, web application exploitation and those types of challenges are gonna generally be more difficult. And we get a lot of people who say, hey, you listed this as a medium challenge, but I thought it was more of a hard challenge, or the other way around. They were like, well, you say that, but then this guy says the opposite thing, so I don't know.
So it
general
can vary. Yeah. Thank you, Costas. There are 9 categories of challenges. Open source, you mentioned. Does open source kind of give you the opportunity to learn categories across the board because it involves so much just pure research rather than the technical piece?
Yeah, that's the one thing that we really recommend to beginners. You don't need any special tools to kind of go do these open source intelligence challenges. You just need the internet. There's so many tools available on websites and stuff like that you don't even need to download to get working. And we are really trying to build your skills to do the other challenges in open source intelligence. And definitely being able to Google and search around is a vital skill that's going to be useful no matter which topic you're choosing.
So what are the other directions that NCL is going in? We do have players in other countries. I know I've seen some players from Canada, Puerto Rico, and we're focusing more on expanding the demographics with high schools this spring. But in the future, do you think this might become more of an international game?
I could definitely see that. The value is there no matter where you are. And I think that, all these different things that we've mentioned today that demonstrate that NCL is more than just a competition. It's a network where you can talk to people. You get the scouting report that helps you do your applications for colleges, or applying for jobs and stuff like that. You get much more than just a simple competition, and I think a lot of people everywhere can benefit from that.
Franz, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's a pleasure to work with you. And I really am excited about where we're going with NCL and the spring season. Thank you so much for being on NCL Thursday Night Live.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.